Good morning, afternoon, good evening from anywhere you are across the world. Want to say a big thank you for joining us today on our final session on the MB-910, which is our Dynamics 365 Fundamentals course. Sorry. Just to confirm if you can see my screen well and if my video is not frozen. I'm not sure why I look frozen on this end. Let me just okay. So well, then we can do on the MB-910 Dynamics 365 Fundamentals course, and it's on field service. So we've looked at customer service, we've looked at marketing, we looked at sales. Now today we're going to look at the field service. Okay, so what are we going to cover in today's session? Our agenda is we're going to explore Dynamics 365 field service, and we're also going to describe the scheduling process. How does this work? So exploring the field service is going to involve three major things. Number one is we're going to identify Dynamics 365 field service. I'm going to describe what work orders are and what the life cycle of work orders are. And we're going to look at what we call inspections when we're talking of field service, right? So when we say field service, what do we mean? Dynamics 365 field service is targeted. It's an app, of course, from Microsoft, part of the Dynamics stack, and it's targeted at technicians that are in the field, managing technicians that are out there in the field. So, what do we mean? So, let's assume that your organization manages several, customers. So, you may have an organization that takes care of, um, let's say, internal repairs of houses. Just a random example. So, you have various engineers, you have plumbers, electricians, and it can also be at a larger scale where your organization takes care of all the plants that are in different places, electrical plants, fuel plants, all those kind of big machineries. So it can range from small things like heaters in people's homes to very big machineries from organizations. So how do you manage, you know, your technicians? How do you know all the people you have in an organization? Yeah, it's okay if you have 5 or 6 people. You kind of understand if you are the scheduler, the person in charge of sending them to various places. You can kind of understand, okay, I know what phone skills are, I know what John's skills are, and I kind of know how to match them. But what happens when your technicians are 1,000, 2,000? You have a customer base of 500,000 that you service. How do you manage it? Right. So that's what Dynamics 365 Field Service helps you to do. It helps you to manage your professionals in-house. They're scheduling who needs to go where. What happens if the customer cancels and says, "Oh, don't come today, I'm not available today," or the person who's going to work with you is not available today. How do you manage? So that whole management of everything around that field service is where the Dynamics 365 field service comes in. So that's just bringing it a little bit to life. So you kind of get context of what we're trying to explain today, right? So we're going to look at, or the field service itself, what we call a work order life cycle, and when we talk of inspections, what do we mean? Okay. So field service is referred to any service that is performed in the field rather than in the company facility. So like manufacturing, healthcare, equipment maintenance, utilities. So any activity that is done outside of a company facility is what we call field service, because they are going out to the field, like outside, to perform that service. Right. So some key terminologies that we have in field service that you would hear a lot are some of these that we've described here, and I'll just explain them briefly. So when we talk about field technicians, we refer to individuals who are performing the work or executing the service for customers in the field. So when you see any terminology as you learn more about the Dynamics 365 field service, field technicians, that's what it means. Now, when we talk about work orders, we're talking about this means this specifies the work that needs to be done by the field technician. A work order includes what the customer details, the service location, appointment time, customer assets that is being serviced if applicable. So that's what I mean by a work order. So the work order is given to the field technician, and the field technician understand, okay, this is where I need to go to, this is what I need to do while I'm here, this is the time I need to get there. If you are going there to maintain an equipment, this is the equipment that I need to maintain. So that's what the work order involves. Then we have the customer assets. A customer asset refers to a piece of equipment that is owned and located at the customer location. Assets can include appliances, equipments, like I said, some big machineries, those type of things are what we refer to as customer assets. And then we have someone we call the dispatcher or the scheduler. So who is this person? This person is the one that oversees field technicians and is responsible for scheduling and dispatching field technicians to execute work orders. So there's somebody at the back that determines where this person should go, where that person should go, at what time, and ensures that he or she's making the best decision per time. Like, you're not sending somebody who is skilled and the person needs to go 500 kilometers from where he is to the customer destination. When you have another skilled resource that the travel time or the distance time is just 20 kilometers, why are you, increasing expense by making a particular field technician spend more time traveling to that destination rather than giving it to another person who is closer, who is available, and who has the same skill set and who will get there in a shorter amount of time? So that's the job of the dispatcher, or also called the scheduler. Then we have some other terminology like first time fixed rates, FTFR. This is the resolution of a customer's issue on the first service visit. Organizations strive for a high first time fixed rate because it means reduced visits, and reduced visits in turn results in reduced cost, higher profitability, and higher customer satisfaction, and of course, higher productivity. So, of course, we all know that because we have people who come into our homes to fix things for us. So, if somebody comes in to say, oh, maybe you have a plumber, say, oh, my tap isn't working well. The person comes the first day, fixes it, and no complaint. Fantastic. But when you have to bring the person back to say, like when I fixed my tap last time, person came and the person fixed the tap and the water wasn't coming into the washing machine or the dishwasher anymore. I said, I had to call back to say, come on, you fixed something, but water is not supplying anymore to my washing machine, to my dishwasher. What's going on? The person had to come back to fix it. When the person came back to fix it, then I discovered that the hot water wasn't running anymore. The person had to come back. So you can imagine the cost to the organization of a technician coming back 3 times to do the same work. And of course, the cost of travel, he could have been in with another customer, helping that customer out. So all of that, organizations don't want it. And of course, customer satisfaction is reduced because if they tell me you want to bring the same thing, I'll say, no, don't bring that person back to my house. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. He has to come back 3 times because he did something. So because organizations don't want that, right, they always strive to have high first time fixed rates. Then we have the ETA, estimated time of arrival. This is estimated time it's going to take the field technician to get to the service location and to begin work. So that's what ETA means. And we have a term also called truck roll. Truck roll is a situation that requires a technician to be dispatched in a truck to the customer service. And then we have the windshield time. This is the amount of time a technician spends in a vehicle while performing activities related to service the customer. Increased windshield time impacts utilization. Organizations need to reduce this as much as possible, right? So the amount of time a technician spends in a vehicle while performing activities related to a service, we need to reduce this as much as possible. So that's like travel time. You don't want your technician spending 2 hours, 3 hours, trying to get to the customer location. They would have used that time to service 2 or 3 customers. So these are all of the considerations that the dispatcher puts in mind before scheduling field technicians. So those are some of the terms that I would see as we go along. So let's talk a bit about work orders. Yeah. So work orders can be created from any number of scenarios, and some of the examples are: there's an internal request for a new piece of equipment to be installed. You want to have a follow-up on and inspection or audits on a particular equipment. That can be a work order. Dispatching a technician based on an alert generated by an internet and an IoT device. So that's also something we're going to look at a bit more now. The use of IoT devices and how that helps us to be more intelligent as we dispatch technicians. And a case that can be resolved remotely and requires a technician to be dispatched. So as we talk a bit more, we discovered that sometimes when we have IoT devices in locations, you can resolve some of those issues remotely without necessarily visiting that particular location. But in a situation where the issue needs somebody on site, then a work order is raised. So some ways the organization can create a work order includes you can do it manually, after an order has been placed. So the customer has said, yes, I want to do this piece of work. Then a work order is created. It can be automatically created from a sales opportunity in Dynamics 365. We know we spoke about sales. So immediately the opportunity has been confirmed, then a work order is raised. Then sometimes case records created in Dynamics 365 can also automatically create work orders. So if your company also uses Dynamics CE, that's Dynamics 365 customer engagement CRM, sorry, the service app, the service side of Dynamics. If your company uses that and a customer has made a complaint about something, right? Then you know that, oh, a technician needs to go there. Then you raise a work order immediately. Or a customer manually requesting or scheduling service on the portal. So some organizations will have a portal for their customers and they can go in to actually say, I need somebody to come in at this time to take a look at my equipment. Then it can also be automatically based on service management agreements. So you can have a standard service level agreement with organization that says, we'll come in every 6 months to take a look at your um, machines, your equipment, to carry out an inspection or an audit on it. So once that is in place, then automatically when 6 months time is up, a work order is raised that, somebody needs to go here to take a look at this equipment. And then it can also be automatically raised through an event from an IoT device, like we had explained already. So what does the life cycle look like? Right. While organizations are a little different, of course, we know that this process can be standard for every organization, but this kind of just gives us an idea of how it runs end to end, right? So you have the case at the very end, right? And then the work order creation. So it can come in from a case, from an agreement, from a sales order, manually, through internet, an IoT device, and all of the things that we've spoken about. So that comes in, then we need to schedule someone, a technician, to go and take a look at that request, that work order. Then once the scheduling is done, the technician is dispatched, the service is carried out, a review is done by the customer to say, oh, was this satisfactory? Are you happy? Approvals. And once we get the confirmation that the customer is happy, what happens? We make an invoice for the customer and we sometimes adjust our inventory. So an example is maybe the technician is going for a repair and the technician had to take some certain things from the office. Or I need to change the control of the equipment, or the plug is bad or something. So the technician has taken some of the things from the organization. Then what happens is after the work is done, the organization, there needs to be an inventory adjustment to say, okay, we had 10 plugs before, a technician has taken 2 out, now we have 8 left. So that's what that inventory adjustment means. So talking a bit more about the life cycle of the work order, we can see, okay, I've explained this in a little more detail already. So you can see what happens at the beginning, how it is created, then what happens next, the status that the work order has. So once it is opened, either by any of the things we've explained before, it comes to opened unscheduled, right? Then once it moves from work order creation to schedule, what happens at that point? The work order schedule is created. You can assign somebody to it either manually, or all of these other options. Then the dispatcher does this, and then the work order status changes to open scheduled, and the booking status is scheduled. And this is important because it comes out in the exam sometimes. They'll give a scenario and say, okay, what particular work order status is this? So you need to understand the status in a bit more detail. Then it moves to dispatched, and then the booking goes to scheduled, but the work order status is still open scheduled. But when you go to service, that is performed by the field agents, and this work order status moves to open in progress, then open completed. And then sometimes you can have booking status of traveling or in progress, and then also completed based on the current status of that field technician. And then we move to the second to last process, which is now about review and approval. So this sometimes this is performed by a supervisor, a manager. Somebody needs to verify that all the work was done properly and in accordance to the work order, right? So you sent a field technician there and said, go and repair the plug. We need to confirm the person repaired the plug and not the sockets. So that's what happens here. And then the work order status goes from open completed, you know, then it goes to close posted and the booking status is completed. And the final stage, which is stage of invoicing and inventory adjustments, this is automatically sent by the system. So what happens? Invoice is created based on the product or services used. Inventory adjustment is made. Products converted into equipment if applicable. And then your work order status is closed, posted, and then you have a booking status of completed. So that takes us end to end on the life cycle of a work order. So if you have any questions, you can always feel free to put it in the chat window and I would answer them, or the moderator for today who is behind supporting us. Okay, so now I'm going to describe inspections in Dynamics 365 field service. So compared to work order, incident types, and service tax, inspections have other benefits. Easier to create, easier to fill out, more flexible and robust. And what does it provide? It provides offline support capabilities. So if your technicians need to go out, they have the offline support, customer assets, version management. All of these are available to us in Dynamics 365 field service. Okay, so now I'm going to take a quick look at our demo for today, and we're going to click through working with work orders. So everything that we've explained, we're going to see it, and we're also going to look at working with inspections. So I'll jump out of my slide for a bit now and take us through for today. So let me bring this here. So this is work orders, and that's the first thing I'm going to look at now. Let me refresh. Okay, so let's start. So we're going to give you an example of how the journey begins. So it begins with a user who is working in the Dynamics 365 customer field service app. So now you're just going to imagine that you're that user now who wants to work with a field service application. What happens? Let me zoom a bit. Okay. So from the field service app, you come into work orders here, right? On the left, under scheduling, you can see work orders. So you click on work orders. Then what happens is you see all of the currently active work orders that you have at the moment, right, will be displayed here. Then here you can create a new work order. And we can see from here that you can see the system status. Some are opened on schedule, some are opened scheduled. We explained that the status when we were talking about it. So you come to new, then you come here and say, what accounts do you want to associate with this work order? So you pick the account here, then you fill out some other information about it. You can come here to click on the primary incident type. So incident types, they act as templates for predefined items in a work order. And in this instance, we're going to use the line connection is lost. That's the incident type that we're using this work order for. So based on the incident type that we have selected, you know, additional items in the work order will automatically be populated, like work order type and the price list, because we already have all of those things set at the back. So after that, we can also include some other things in the settings. So here, the settings tab will allows us to define items that can impact the scheduling of the work order, such as the service territory, scheduling windows, and then we'll now specify that the customer would prefer someone to arrive between specific hours. So you can see location is on site, where's the service territory is in WA, what's the preference, what preference does the customer want. So all of these things can be set in, this is the time from promised, we between this time and this time is what the customer has said, we want you to come. And once you do all of that, you then save and close the work order. So of course we said that there are various ways of creating a work order. So that's one example, which is manually. But in the next example, we would examine the process of creating a work order directly from a case record. So in this assumption, you assume that somebody has complained about something in the service side, and you then need to create a work order so that a technician can go in to fix the problem, right? And I found this very interesting, to know that it's an interesting part of Dynamics 365, because a lot of us work with field technicians, and maybe some of us are field technicians anyway, and just looking at what goes on behind the scenes, like, wow, okay, that's true. Because how do these guys know this is where they're supposed to be at this time? Well, it's okay if they have 5 or 6 people, but what if they have 5,000 technicians? How does a company manage this? So this just gives us insights, and of course, that's why Field Service is one of the amazing Dynamics 365 products produced by Microsoft. Okay, so come to cases. All of the active cases that we have will be displayed here. Then you can select the case that you want to create a work order for. So from the case record to be converted to a work order, you must have the incident type defined. That's very important. So let's take a look at that. Uh, why is it loading? So when you come into the incident type, you can see that an incident type has been created, which is units overeating. That's the incident type. Then you now convert it to work order. So you can see that on the case record, you have all of these tabs here, and we have a field service tab. So if it's an organization that has bought field service, that's what they will see here, right? So you can then click on convert to work order, and then okay. So since an incident type was defined on the case record, many different details on the work order are going to be pre-populated. Like we explained before, once you define some of the parameters, some of the other things get populated. So let's look at some items. So when you come to the services tab, this displays the list of services that are provided as a part of this work order. So these are the things that they need to do as a part of this work order. Estimated duration, what the amount is going to cost. All those things are already set based on the incident type that we created. So in the service tax, we have additional details of what they need to do, right? So diagnose the issue, perform the repair, test and validate, read the diagnostic code, and the estimated number of minutes that will be used to perform each of these by the technician. So the next step will be to schedule this work order. So we have seen 2 examples of how to create a work order. You create from scratch manually, or you create from an existing case. So now I want to look at how we're going to schedule the work order, and that's going to be covered in the next module after this. Not now. Okay, so that's about work orders. The next part of field service we'll look at is scheduling, but not at this time. The next thing I want to talk about is inspections, because we spoke a bit about it. So what does inspections look like? Let's see. So it starts with a user Who is working in the field service mobile application? So you are a user, just imagine you're working in field service and you need to perform a fire extinguisher inspection as part of the work order. So let's assume that your company manages fire extinguishers for various organizations and you have a maintenance contract that says every 3 months or every 2 months or every 6 months will come in to perform inspection on your fire extinguishers, right? So what do we need to do? How does it work when an inspection is to be performed? So you can see here that when you load the application, the technician will be taken to bookings. So the technician can see from bookings all of the activities that has been scheduled for the technician. So when you open the booking that contains the inspection, so this particular inspection I want to see, and it's coming up in 8 hours, and you come to the service tab, you can see the particular one you want, which is a fire extinguisher inspection. So this is on the list of tasks that needs to be done as an inspection task. So you can now come in and fill out the form. So what's the type of the fire extinguisher? Um, you select from all the various options. Does it pass or fail the test? Verify, the pin, is it intact? Is the tank full? Is it sealed there? What's the pressure gauging rate? So all of these are the standard things that they check, the technicians check when they go to inspect the fire extinguishers. And of course, it's different based on what it is that they're inspecting, but it's just an example for us. You can also put in a picture, you can put in the date of the inspection here, upload your picture or a video of what you've done, and then that is completed. So this is the picture of the fire extinguisher here that the field technician snapped and uploaded into the app. So we can see it here that it is there. So now that the inspection has been completed, we'll close out the inspection and complete the service tax. So I'm done, 100% completed, and I choose my final decision. Was it a pass or a fail? And I mark my tax as complete, save and close. So this is an example of how inspections would look like for the field technician. All right, so that said, we've done 2 demos now, working with work orders and working with inspections. So let's continue to the next part of the presentation. Okay, I have a knowledge check here. So we have some questions and we can look at together very quickly. If you're online, you want to post your answers, that would be great. Just to know that you're following us. So when working with a work order, which of the following fields is used to define the location, who and where the technician will be performing the specific work for a work order? So we have billing account, um, resource booking, and service account, right? So the answer to this is service account, because the service account defines the actual account where the service will be completed. So remember in our demo, we have to select a service account for the work order. So now the next question is, many times work orders need to be created when a case being worked on by your contact center cannot be resolved. What needs to be defined on the case record when it is to be converted to a work order? We also said this extensively and showed it in the demo. You need to define the incident type, So it's the incident type that tells us the specific type of incident that must be defined when you are converting a case to a work order. Then which items displayed in the work order pre-represents to-do items as the technician needs to perform when executing the work order. That is what the technician needs to do is the service tax. So service tax is what shows the technician all the things that he needs to be that all of the activities that he or she needs to perform on the work order. Okay, that said, let's move on to the summary. So from this first lesson, what have we learned? We examined the typical life cycle of a work order, we reviewed the information, that is defined on the work order. We also explored how work orders can be created. We examined how incidence types are used in field service and also explored how inspections can be used when executing a work order. So we're going to look at describing the scheduling process. So we spoke a lot about the role of the scheduler or the dispatcher. Now we're going to talk about the process. What are the things we're going to look at? We're going to describe scheduling capabilities, resourcing, resource sharing optimization, customer assets, and also we're going to describe assets and customer connected field service, which is an interesting one. So what are some of the things to consider when you want to schedule? Is the item ready to be scheduled? What type of resources do I need to schedule? Who is qualified to perform this work item? When does it need to be done? Any customer constraints, geographical location, cancellations. The options provided by Dynamics 365 include: number one, you can schedule manually. Number two, you can use the scheduling assistants, and then you can also use the automated schedule. So these are the three options available to us. Okay, so let's take a look at it. Now, organizations can define the following types of resources, right? Specific resources in organizations can be associated to different specific resource roles in organizations can be associated to different resources. Roles can be added to specific resources and schedulable items like work orders to ensure that only resources with that role are suggested as people to work on the item. So that's what we talk about resource roles. So these are the various types of resources in organization. You can have the account, the contact, user, equipment, crew, facility, and pool. And then on the right side, you can have resource roles, which I have spoken about now. That you can use different resource roles against different resources. And we also have the skills. What are the skills? This shows the specific skill or certification that can be associated with different resources. Resource skills can also be used to support specific scenarios where resources may need to possess specific access to something, like a building or security clearance, all those type of things. So resource skills just talks about the skills that the resources have or need to have to perform certain things. So these are also other options that can be included in resourcing, which you can also consider when you are scheduling. All right, so this is what a schedule board looks like, right? So how do you work with the schedule board? The ways the items can be scheduled on the schedule board. So this is the board. So you can see our resources here. This is the dates, range, and these are the various work orders that we have at the moment. So you have some filtering here, hourly view. You have some other details here about the work item on your left, and the resource requirements is at the lower pane. So to schedule on the schedule board, you can manually drag items by moving them around. You can use find availability to initiate the schedule assistance. So for some of us that are familiar with Teams and Outlook, when you want to book a meeting and you put everybody that's going to attend the meeting there, then you can use the scheduling assistant and it will show you like who's available. Sometimes you would even see the pop-up suggested times. So the schedule assistant has gone and checked everybody's calendar and has seen a time that is available for each person there. So it's kind of that same concept that is being used here also. Then you can also view the map and manually block off time on the calendar. So we'll see a demo about that in a bit, which kind of shows some more. So now reviewing resource scheduling optimization use cases. How RSO can be leveraged, right? What is RSO? Resource scheduling optimization. How can it be leveraged? Number one, we have overnight scheduling, intraday scheduling, condition-based scheduling, cancellation and delays, and we have simulations. Sorry, we have simulations. So overnight scheduling is probably the most common way of leveraging RSO to optimize schedules. Typically, the optimization job is working with large amounts of data. For this reason, it is most effective to define schedules that will run RSO jobs after normal business hours. An organization would create a nightly or even a weekly schedule based on what they want to optimize. And each schedule job has an attached record scope that defines resources, requirements, bookings to optimize. And when that schedule job is executed, it also optimizes all items that are in the scope. So you can see what you want to optimize. What are the resources? What are the requirements? What this is the booking states. So you have the job name, what frequency does it run, so from there, this RSO helps us, to optimize these various use cases. And these are some of the examples of the way the RSO can work for you. So you can say, oh, the resources you want to optimize are Washington-based resources or resources in a particular location. You want it to run in this every night in this particular frequency. So that's how the RSO optimization works for us with specific use cases. So now, looking at um use cases for common customer assets, right? So by using customer assets, field service organizations can do certain things. They can record and maintain specific information about the particular item. So you can see there's this all-in-one printer that is here. So you can maintain information about the assets that you manage for your customer. So you can have a historical log of all the work orders that has been raised relating to that particular item. And you can also put in if there's any associated IoT enabled device, you can also put it there that we can interact with remotely. All of those information can be put in the customer assets. So anyone that comes in can have like a view and an history of that customer's assets. So now let's talk about customer assets with connected field service, right? So how connected field service works. A customer asset is created. You have an IoT device record also created and registered. Then that IoT device is attached to that customer asset. So whenever an abnormality occurs, right, because you have set certain parameters when we're setting up the device. For example, you can say this particular equipment should not have any temperature greater than 20 degrees centigrade. If the machine starts to have a temperature that is 18, raise a warning, or that is 22, raise a warning. And what happens then is that an alert is sent to the connected field service, and the device, you can interact with the device remotely, right? You can run some commands from where you are to that device that can correct it. So that's why we said when you're raising a work order, if the sometimes the case can be resolved remotely, so you don't need to raise a work order for a field technician to go there. So this is an example of how you can use commands and run it remotely to correct the issue because you are using the connected field service and you have an IoT device connected to that equipment. But sometimes if the issue cannot be resolved remotely, then a work order needs to be raised the dispatcher needs to schedule a field technician to go there and check on it. All right, so I'm going to look at our demo for today that talks about scheduling capabilities and this connected field service. So I will jump on my screen to show us what I'm talking about. Sorry, one second. All right, so let's look at our scheduling capabilities here with the click-through demo. So this begins with the user working in Dynamics 365 field service. Now let's start. So looking at the field service again, the last time we came to work orders, but here we have the dashboard. Um, we're going to go to the work order now to start from there. So this shows us a list of all our active work orders like we saw before, and the various status: open, scheduled, open, unscheduled, in progress. And so now creating a new work order, after you have inputted all the necessary things, we have gone through this before, you can save. So now we come to schedule the work order. So we select the book button here in the command bar. So this will open the schedule assistant, and the assistant provides schedulers with a list of available resources that meet the requirements defined in the work order, right? So in the work order, we have said this is the location, this is the incident type, this is the preferred time that the customer wants. So what the scheduling assistant does is it will consider all of this, and then bring up resources that are available that can do the work. So then we can now we can we can change how the resources returned. Okay, you can display in various ways from here. So you can decide you want to view in a different way. Now to schedule a resource, we're going to select the time you want to schedule. So from here on the right hand side, we select the time. A booking will be added to that resource. So as we're scheduling George here, so once you select the time, booking is added to the resource, and then we'll examine different ways. So that's how you assign a resource to a particular work order. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at different ways the item can be scheduled using the schedule board. So that's one way that we can use the item using the schedule assistant. Now, we'll come to the schedule board on the left hand side. And like we saw before, so we saw the list of resources, here, we saw here what the requirements are. We saw, the timing is also here, availability, everything, the various work orders are here. So the first thing we do is when we get to the scheduling board, we can select the item that we want to schedule. We click on find availability. So now that's what we're going to do. So after the schedule assistant launches, we're going to hover over the suggested time for the resource we want and select book, right? So it's still the same process that we went through before. And then the item will be scheduled for that resource. So here you can now see that this particular item has been scheduled for this particular resource. 15 minutes. And then you can exit your search. So items can also be scheduled by dragging requirements from the requirements pane and placing them on the resource that you want. So that's also another way which you can schedule resources. So you can click and hold the requirements that you want. So this is what we want to do. You click and hold it, and then we can now drag it to the particular resource that we want to use for that work. And it drops here. So you can see that between 11 and 1, this particular resource has been scheduled for work order 0050. So Many times dispatchers, they will need to reschedule items and find a substitute resource. So let's look at it. So maybe a technician is ill or something came up, and the dispatcher or the scheduler needs to shuffle things around. So how is that done? So if you want to do that, maybe this particular work order which you are scheduled to judge before, you want to reschedule it to somebody else. So when you right click on the work order, you can come to substitute resource. And when you click on substitute resource, you can select the person from the drop down list that you want to substitute. Now, when you select find substitution, the schedule assistant would help you to bring out the resources that can match this person. And from there, you can select an alternative and say reassign. So it's successfully reassigned. And then that work order would go off that person to the other person that you have rescheduled it to. So that's about work order. Now let's look at connected field service. Sorry, that's about scheduling. Connected field service. So let's look at how this works for us in a real life scenario. So a user, you're working in Dynamics 365 field service. So you come again into the connected, field service app. So I'm going to start by looking at a customer assets record. So customer assets represents a serviceable equipment sitting in your customer's location. And the customer assets can often be IoT devices that can be remotely managed in Dynamics 365. So these are the two things that we can refer to as customer assets. Okay, so let's start. Customer assets. From here, we can see all active customer assets that are in the system. So you click on the particular record that you want to open. So we are looking at a smart thermometer. So the record provides organizations with all relevant information about this equipment. Everything you want to know about it. Some articles that talks more about it, some of that, the way the category is linked to, and other information. So articles, work orders, sub assets. So this displays, some other assets that are associated to this particular assets. And oftentimes represents things like IoT sensors that are located inside the assets record. So from here, you can select what you want to work on and use the scroll bar to access any additional details not currently displayed on the screen, of course. Um, then we can look this. We can see that this is an IoT device record that is used by Dynamics 365 to monitor all information being broadcasted by the physical IoT device. So connected devices are here. So if we select the connected device, we can see information about it here. All right, so this is customer assets and IoT devices and how we can see information about them. So let's look at a real world scenario. So we have a smart thermometer simulator. This is used to provide a visual reference of how a physical device broadcasts information about itself. Right. So you can see a physical device is there on the left hand side. And let's see how it broadcasts the information. So the IoT device can broadcast messages related to their status at regular intervals. So this is an IoT device and is broadcasting information about itself from time to time. So you can see humidity is 40%, temperature is 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's sending that information per time, and you can view that information from your Dynamics 365 connected field service. So that's the trail of all of the messages that has been broadcasted, and that's displayed in the simulator. So once the temperature rises to a specific level, an alert to be sent to Dynamics 365. So when you come to IoT alerts here, you can see the most recent alert at the top. So you can see that it has exceeded the threshold. So when you click on it, you see temperature reading 77 exceeded the threshold of 70. So the alert record provides all details about the alert, such as which device it came from, the type of alert it is, and every other information you can see on your screen. So after generating an alert, what Dynamics 365 also does is automatically creates a case to say, there's a case that needs attention, right? So when you select the case, create case stage, you can view the case record that was created, and all of this is done automatically. So from the case record, agents can go through their normal troubleshooting steps. Additionally, they can perform remote commands on the IoT device directly from the case record. So this is the case record that was created. So I'm an agent, I want to work on this case. I can directly send some commands to that internet, that IoT device that is in the customer's um, location. So what type of command do I want to send? All of these things have already been preset. So you just select the values, all these are the default readings that you need to modify, and then you send the command. So in the simulator, messages received window will display the messages that was sent, temperature and humidity. So that will be visualized here. So that has been received by the IoT device. So on the other side, we have the ones that the IoT device is sending to us. On the other side, we have the ones that the IoT device is receiving from us through the commands that we have sent. So sometimes agents may not be able to resolve the customer issues remotely. In those cases that agents can resolve the customer issue remotely, what happens? A work order is created. Then the scheduler schedules a technical agent, and the person goes there to go and resolve the issue. So you convert it to a work order, and then the work order process begins, like what we had explained previously. All right, so I hope that was interesting. I found it very interesting though when I heard it. So those are the we looked at scheduling and also the connected field service and the real life examples of both of them. So finally, we'll look at our knowledge check for today. Some questions for us to answer. So which of the following, which schedule board component is used to display unscheduled items? What do we use to display items that are not scheduled? Yes, we use the requirements plane to display that. Which options of scheduling an item uses the schedule assistant? What uses the schedule assistant for us? That is the find availability. If you remember, we clicked on the find availability at the lower end of the schedule board. Then in which scenarios will you most likely use single resource optimization? When do we use it? Single resource optimization. We use it to adjust a technician's schedule after a cancellation. So that's one of the areas that would use the single resource optimization. So in summary, throughout this lesson, what have we learned? We have learned in this particular lesson, we spoke about scheduling, we spoke about how to qualify resources, we looked at the schedule board, we spoke about the connected field service, we spoke about the different options available to schedule, and we also looked at the RSO for scheduling. So what have we learned today? We've learned about the Dynamics 365 field service. We spoke about work orders, the life cycle of work orders. We spoke about the role of the dispatcher, how the scheduler carries out the scheduling. We gave different examples. We looked at inspections. Then went into connected field service. We spoke about how it works in the back end, how you can register customer assets, how you can register IoT devices. And we also looked at how these IoT devices can be used in a real life scenario. How you don't even need to go to the customer location every time. You can and you can actually solve some of these things remotely, from where you are. And then in cases where this cannot be resolved, a work order can be created and we can begin the entire work order life cycle. So I hope you learned a thing or two today from us. And we look forward to you writing the MB-910 exam, you know. So I've written mine and it went very well. So I encourage you to write yours too. Let's study. Once you write it and you pass, please um remember to tag myself, remember to tag the Dynamics 365 Ninja group, community group in your post. We'll be happy to celebrate you. And this is the last module for this particular MB 910, but we'll also be coming up with other exam study series in the nearest future. So stay tuned to us on our channels on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We also have a WhatsApp group, and we will be happy to have you sign up for other forthcoming events. And we look forward to hearing more from you and seeing your fantastic outcomes from your exams. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.